Atlanta was buzzing long before the first note rang out at Spice's concert. But what happened that night sent shockwaves through the entire city. People think Atlanta drama starts and ends with music, but in reality, it's the whispers, the confessionals, the shade tucked in interviews, and the loyalty cracks that really set this city on fire. That night was supposed to be about music and celebration, but the moment Rasheeda and Kirk walked into the venue, the air shifted. Everyone knew there was tension brewing, but nobody was prepared for how quickly the atmosphere would thicken once the names of Yandy and Rasheeda were uttered in the same sentence. Spice, being who she is, wasn't about to let the night unfold without planting the seed of confrontation. She told Yandy ahead of time that the frost would be there, and in true Yandy fashion, she didn't flinch. She didn't hide. She didn't retreat. She said exactly what she felt, that she was glad the frosts were coming so they could finally bring to her face the energy they had been spreading on podcasts, confessionals, and backstage gossip. Yandy had been carrying this quiet strength, but that night, she was ready to release it. And when she looked Spice dead in the eye and said she wanted to hear it straight, no whispers, no third-party relays, you knew she meant it. But what happened? Rasheeda didn't even last the night. She smiled for the cameras, nodded at fans, but the moment Yandy was near, she bolted out, leaving confusion and whispers in her wake. And that's the thing about Rasheeda. She knows how to perform when the cameras are on, but when it comes time to stand on the words she's thrown like knives in interviews, she folds. Her confessional had already made its rounds online, the one where she smirked and said she wasn't trying to be around Yandy with no bad BBL and funky breath. The audacity of it had people replaying the clip just to make sure they heard it right. This wasn't subtle shade, it was loud, it was mean, and it was calculated. But the irony? The same people clowning Yandy's body were quick to remind Rasheeda that her own body had long been a topic of whispered conversations, with fans constantly questioning her natural claims and her rebrand from rainbow dresses to boutique. Mogul Yandy, though, was steady. After the concert, she sat with Spice in that dressing room, and you could see the weight of betrayal on her face. She wasn't even angry in that wild, screaming way reality stars usually are. No, her hurt was quieter but sharper, like a knife pressed against skin without a single cut. She told Spice, "I shared my business with her, personal, private moments, and she turned around and dragged me on every platform she could find." Her voice was tight, her hands clasped, but the emotion behind it was heavy. She wasn't just mad about the insults. She was heartbroken about the disloyalty. Because, in Atlanta, loyalty is currency. And when someone you've called a sister trades that loyalty for podcast content, the wound runs deep. Spice, of course, played the wide-eyed role, tilting her head, asking why things went left, as if she hadn't heard the gossip herself. But Yandy wasn't letting her slide with feigned innocence. She told her flat out that this wasn't just shade out of nowhere, it was about alliances. She made it clear that Rasheeda had been getting close to Jasmine, the very woman who had been a thorn in her marriage, the one who nearly brought her house down. And Yandy leaned forward, sharp as ever, saying, "Did I stutter? You heard me. Don't act stupid." That was the moment the energy in the room snapped. You could feel the audience leaning closer to their screens, the blogs readying their headlines, because when Yandy throws down a line like that, you know it's not an empty threat. The streets started buzzing louder the next day. Clips from the concert leaked, fan accounts spread rumors like wildfire, and suddenly the hashtags were rolling. But it wasn't just the clips. It was the confessionals resurfacing, the messy edits, the old footage being brought back up. People started dissecting every interaction, pulling receipts and creating timelines of how the friendship between Yandy and Rasheeda had soured. And the general consensus? It was never about a BBL or funky breath. It was about loyalty. It was about betrayal wrapped in pretty packaging and sold to the highest bidding gossip blog. Yandy, instead of spiraling, flipped the narrative. She jumped into her own comments, answering fans with calm but cutting replies. When someone accused her of having work done, she broke it down. No BBL, no teeth replacements, just braces and the natural effects of breastfeeding 2 children. She was transparent, but she also knew how to turn transparency into strength. She laughed at the stretches, mocked the desperation of the accusations, and then posted the kind of content that only she could. Carousels of her in confident poses with captions like, "My heart is pure, my booty is real." The words were simple, but the delivery was lethal. And then came the stylist's comment, the one that had the internet gasping. "Tell Rasheeda she been smelling like earring backs." That line alone broke through the noise. Everyone knows the unmistakable, sour, metallic funk of an old earring back, and to compare someone to that? It was savage, unforgivable shade. Yandy didn't even need to say it herself. The people around her were doing the heavy lifting, dragging Rasheeda without mercy, and she, with her strategist mind, simply reposted it. She didn't add paragraphs of explanation, she didn't rant, she just let the words sit, knowing the internet would feast on them. Meanwhile, Rasheeda stayed quiet. Too quiet. And in this city, silence isn't peace, it's weakness. The blogs dragged her rainbow dress days, her Shein rebrands, her tendency to hide behind confessionals instead of facing confrontation head-on. The narrative was slipping from her hands, and she knew it. Yandy, on the other hand, leaned into the storm. She posted a video captioned, "I woke up and chose violence." But she made it clear she wasn't talking about fists. She was talking about strategy, business, and empire building. She reminded everyone that she wasn't about to throw away blooming deals for petty fights, that she had generational wealth to secure, and that while the others were busy drowning in gossip, she was busy winning. That's what separates Yandy. She knows how to flip every attack into a marketing moment. And while fans screamed for a Harlem beatdown, she kept her crown straight, her brand intact, and her bag secure. Still, the comments section was a war zone. Some fans begged her to clap back harder, to expose Rasheeda with the kind of viciousness she had been exposed with. Others said karma was already at work, that Yandy didn't need to lift a finger because tables always turn. And a select few? They admitted they were disappointed she was too nice, that her playing classy was irritating them, because in the love and hip-hop universe, fans are addicted to the mess, the violence, the chaos. But Yandy knew better. She had been in the game too long to fall for traps that could cost her the bigger picture. And just when the fire seemed to be cooling, Jessie Woo stepped into the comments and reignited it. She wrote that she was genuinely confused because Yandy's body had always been real, heavy wagon and all, and maybe the editors had twisted things for laughs. Her words poured gasoline on an already burning flame, because now the conversation wasn't just about what was said, it was about what was edited, what was manipulated, what was produced for laughs at the expense of real friendships. That's the dark underbelly of reality TV. Sometimes the drama isn't born, it's manufactured, but the consequences are real all the same. Yandy, though, ended part one of this saga with a message that cut through all the noise. She reminded people that switch-ups don't happen overnight. They've been brewing. She posted, "Your face when you listen to basics talk about basics," sealing it with her signature calm shade. It was less of a scream and more of a whisper, but whispers carry farther when the streets are already listening. And Atlanta? Atlanta was listening loud and clear. The morning after the concert, Atlanta woke up divided. Half the city was replaying the footage of Rasheeda sliding out the back door like a thief in the night, while the other half was dissecting every word Yandy dropped in Spice's dressing room. The blogs didn't sleep. Instagram was a battlefield. TikTok was filled with reenactments of the funky BBL cheeks line, and Twitter was drowning in threads where fans picked sides. Some argued that Rasheeda had simply reached her breaking point and was tired of being around someone she no longer respected. Others accused her of being two-faced, saying her shade was loud when the cameras were rolling, but her courage vanished when she had to face Yandy in the flesh. The comment sections became confessionals of their own, filled with strangers deciding who deserved loyalty and who had already betrayed it. And in the middle of this chaos, Yandy refused to crumble. Instead, she leaned into the storm. She began posting soft but deadly captions under carefully curated photos, reminding everyone that her focus was on building, not breaking. "Generational wealth over jealousy wins every time," she wrote under one shot, her smile calm but her eyes sharp. The caption went viral not because it was loud, but because it carried weight. Fans who had followed her journey from love and hip-hop to businesswoman knew she wasn't bluffing. She wasn't about to lose brand deals, blooming partnerships, or her public image over the kind of messy shade that Rasheeda thrived on. Yandy understood something her critics didn't. The smarter war is fought with restraint, not fists. Not fists. Still, the internet demanded blood. They wanted clapbacks, drag sessions, messy IG lives where both women hurled insults at each other until their voices cracked. That's what fans lived for. The chaos, the spectacle, the unforgettable quotes. That would be recycled into memes for years. But Yandy stayed steady, keeping her head high. When a follower accused her of secretly having a BBL, she broke it down methodically, explaining her body's changes through childbirth and breastfeeding, schooling them on the natural transformations women endure. She ended the comment with the kind of dismissive laugh that only sharpened the sting. "Sis, you reaching? Do your arms hurt from that stretch?" The internet exploded with laughter, repeating the line like gospel, turning it into a slogan on Twitter headers and TikTok skits. Meanwhile, Rasheeda went quiet. Too quiet. That silence was louder than any insult because it showed the imbalance of power. The same woman who had smirked through confessionals about funky breath and slapping cheeks was nowhere to be found when the heat turned toward her. Instead, old clips resurfaced. Her rainbow reunion dresses, her early fashion flops, her old storyline failures. The rebrands she had worked years to polish were suddenly being unraveled by strangers with screenshots and receipts. Her silence gave them permission to drag her unchecked, and every hour she stayed quiet, the narrative slipped further out of her hands. But Spice wasn't going to let the storm pass without stirring it again. She jumped on a live, pretending to still be confused, insisting she didn't know why two women who once called each other friends were now enemies. But fans weren't buying it. They flooded her comments, accusing her of playing both sides, of delivering messages like a professional pot stirrer, of being the one who benefits most when two women clash. "Spice, you messy and you know it," one fan wrote, and thousands liked the comment. She laughed it off, but her role in the feud wasn't being ignored. People were calling her out for being the one who texted, the one who whispered, the one who carried bones from one house to another. And then came the Jasmine rumors. Yandy had dropped it casually in the dressing room, but once fans got hold of the idea that Rasheeda was getting close to Jasmine, the gossip turned nuclear. Screenshots of alleged trips to the Bahamas surfaced. Anonymous accounts claimed they had spotted them together. Rumors said they were plotting a business collaboration. Others said it was just a friendship. But in Atlanta, perception is reality. And the perception was that Rasheeda had crossed the ultimate line by aligning with someone who once threatened to tear Yandy's marriage apart. Whether true or not, the whispers turned into headlines, and those headlines turned into viral fuel. Yandy, always the strategist, didn't even need to address the Jasmine rumors directly. She let the streets do it for her. Blogs titled their posts with phrases like, "Rasheeda's secret alliance," and "Yandy was right all along." She just kept posting her family, her business ventures, and her quiet captions that dripped with subliminal shade. "People don't switch up overnight. They've been feeling that way," she wrote under one photo, her smile calm, her pose unbothered. Fans read between every line, interpreting every caption as a dagger aimed straight at Rasheeda's chest. The stylist's comment about Rasheeda smelling like earring backs still hadn't died down. Memes flooded Instagram with pictures of earring backs captioned, "Rasheeda's new perfume." It was brutal, and though Yandy hadn't authored the comment, her simple repost was enough to make it unforgettable. That's her power. She knows when to speak, and she knows when silence is louder. And the silence that followed her repost screamed across timelines louder than any live rant could have. But while Yandy was turning insults into marketing moments, Rasheeda was being painted into a corner. Her fans begged her to speak up, to defend herself, to drag Yandy with the same ferocity she had behind closed doors. Yet, every day she remained silent, only fed the narrative that she had nothing real to stand on. Worse, whispers began swirling that Kirk had advised her to keep quiet, afraid of how deep the feud could cut into their already fragile reputation. And if there's one thing people in Atlanta hate, it's the perception that a woman can't stand on her own without her man's voice guiding her. Yandy, on the other hand, was owning the headlines. She posted a video with the caption, "I woke up this morning and I chose violence," but she clarified quickly in her comments, "Not the kind that loses deals, the kind that wins wars." Fans applauded, blogs reposted it, and suddenly she was being praised not just as a reality star, but as a strategist, someone who could turn the ugliest feud into a marketing blueprint. The shift in perception was powerful. She wasn't just surviving the storm, she was using it to water her empire, but the streets weren't done. They wanted escalation. They wanted blood. They wanted to see Rasheeda crack, to see her respond, to see her face off with Yandy in a way that would break the internet. And whispers began that production wanted the same. Meetings were being set, up calls were being made, and insiders were leaking that the network was ready to cash in on the feud, maybe even centering an entire season arc around it. Because in love and hip-hop, pain isn't just pain, it's profit, and so the stage was set. Yandy had proven she could clap back without ruining her brand. Rasheeda had gone silent, her silence speaking volumes. Spice was being dragged as the messy instigator. And in the middle of it all, the streets couldn't stop talking about Jasmine, the ghost in the feud who wasn't even on stage but somehow became the third player in the war. But just when the dust seemed to settle, one more spark lit the fire again. A mysterious Instagram page appeared, posting old, unseen footage of a night out where voices sounded suspiciously like Rasheeda and Jasmine, laughing, clinking glasses, and toasting to new beginnings. Whether real or fake, the damage was done. Fans didn't care about authenticity. They cared about the drama. And if it was true, then Yandy's accusations weren't just suspicions. They were receipts waiting to explode. And with that, Atlanta leaned forward again, waiting for the next move. Because in this city, no feud stays quiet for long, and no secret stays buried. The only question now was whether Rasheeda would finally break her silence or let the streets write the ending for her. Atlanta didn't sleep after that mystery page dropped the footage. Whether it was real, edited, or a straight-up plant by somebody behind the scenes, the video spread like wildfire. Two women clinking glasses, their laughter echoing in the background. Their voices sounding just enough like Rasheeda and Jasmine to convince the masses it was them. It didn't matter if it was blurry. It didn't matter if the audio was grainy. Atlanta doesn't need HD when it comes to mess. Perception is reality, and the perception was clear. Yandy had been right all along. She said Rasheeda was cozying up to Jasmine, and now the receipts, real or manufactured, were out for the world to see. The blogs exploded. Titles screamed across every gossip page. Rasheeda's secret alliance exposed. Jasmine and Rasheeda caught laughing at Yandy. Fans flooded the comments, some laughing, some disgusted, others disappointed. Sis, you built a whole empire off loyalty, and now this? One wrote under Rasheeda's last Instagram post. Her silence became its own story. For every hour she didn't respond, the narrative grew uglier. And when a reality star refuses to defend herself, the streets do it for her, and the streets have no mercy. Meanwhile, Yandy didn't even need to say much. She let the blogs eat it alive. She let fans sharpen their knives in her defense. She simply posted a calm photo, her head high, her caption reading, "Tables turn, bridges burn, lessons learned." That one line broke the internet. People reposted it, turned it into memes, quoted it on Twitter threads. It was the kind of subliminal dagger that leaves no blood on your hands, but cuts just as deep. And in that moment, Yandy proved what her critics had underestimated. She knew exactly how to win without lifting a finger. But Rasheeda was cracking. For years, she had built her brand on being the calm one, the boss chick, the woman who could rise above drama. But now her brand was being stripped bare. Her silence was painting her as guilty, and whispers of betrayal were threatening to undo everything she had spent years creating. Kirk reportedly told her to stay out of it, to let it blow over, but Atlanta doesn't blow over. Atlanta digs deeper. Atlanta magnifies. Atlanta replays receipts until they're etched into stone. The more she hid, the more the city turned against her. Spice, who had played neutral for weeks, couldn't escape the backlash either. Fans called her out for being the one who lit the match in the first place. Her name was dragged into every headline as the messy middle who carried bones from one friend to another. She went live to defend herself, saying she just wanted peace, that she never thought things would go this far. But the comments ate her alive. Girl, you started it. Don't play dumb now. You love watching women fall apart. Messy. Queen strikes again. And no matter how many times she blinked innocently into the camera, the truth was already written. Spice had stirred the pot, and now the stew was boiling over. The feud wasn't just on social media anymore. It bled into their businesses. Yandy's posts were flooded with supportive comments, her products selling out, fans buying just to show they stood with her. Meanwhile, Rasheeda's boutique page was attacked with clown emojis, people dragging old outfits, calling her a fraud, a flip-flopper, a woman who built her career on disloyalty. This wasn't just gossip anymore, it was economics. Reputation equals revenue, and in this war, Yandy was cashing in while Rasheeda was bleeding out. But the final blow didn't come from fans, blogs, or even Yandy herself. It came from inside the industry. A leaked email surfaced from a brand that had been in talks with Rasheeda for a campaign. The email, now circulating in whispers across Atlanta, allegedly pulled the deal, citing negative publicity and brand image concerns. Whether it was leaked intentionally or not, the streets believed it. And in that moment, the feud stopped being petty shade and became a career crisis. Yandy, on the other hand, was thriving. She began speaking on panels about women in business, using her own storm as an example of resilience. She told the story without names, but everyone knew who she was talking about. Sometimes people you break bread with will try to break your back, but when you stay solid, God and the streets will always reveal the truth. The crowd erupted, the blogs reposted it, and fans declared her the winner. By now, Rasheeda had no choice. Silence was no longer an option. She posted a long caption under a photo of herself sitting with her children, trying to soften the blow. She denied alliances with Jasmine, denied disloyalty, and claimed she was misunderstood. But the comments dragged her anyway. Too late, sis. The streets already decided. You should have spoken up weeks ago. Damage control don't work when the house already burned. It was brutal, and no matter how many words she wrote, the perception was already set. The final nail in the coffin came when Yandy posted a video with a soft smile, saying only one line, "My heart is pure, and my booty is real." It was calm, it was simple, but it was lethal. It was the kind of statement that ended arguments, the kind of mic drop that doesn't need yelling, the kind of line that goes down in love and hip-hop history. Fans screamed in the comments, bloggers reposted it with fire emojis, and just like that, the feud was immortalized. Atlanta never forgets, and in this city, loyalty is everything. Rasheeda thought she could throw shade and run. She thought she could whisper in confessionals and hide in silence. But Yandy proved that silence only works when your name is clean. She flipped every insult into a marketing strategy, every attack into a moment of growth. She didn't just win the feud, she turned it into a blueprint. And as the dust settled, the lesson was clear. In the world of love and hip-hop, the cameras may stop rolling, but the streets keep talking. And when the streets talk, they decide who stays standing. And when all was said and done, Yandy was still standing tall, her crown untarnished, her empire growing, her name shining brighter than ever. Rasheeda, on the other hand, was left picking up pieces, her loyalty questioned, her brand bruised, her silence remembered more than her words. Atlanta had chosen its winner, and this time, it wasn't even close.